Hey guys, welcome to another episode in the deep playthrough of AC Unity. The epilogue part, I'm reading through the database because to me that's an integral part of this game, and a deep playthrough is as broad and as thorough as possible. So that also includes these bios and backstories and a little bit of lore. So we still have a lot to do, so let's continue straight on. Louis Antoine de Saint-Just, born in 1767, Louis Antoine de Saint-Just quickly sided with the revolution. In 1791 he was elected to the Legislative Assembly. He made a name for himself when he addressed the convention at the trial of Louis XVI, stating, "A king must reign or die." His words met with prolonged applause. Saint-Just was the first to openly pronounce what many thought but did not dare to say. In September 1793, the French Revolution veered dramatically towards terror. The Committee of Public Safety increasingly asserted its far-reaching power, especially its leaders Robespierre, Couthon, Collot d'Herbois, and Saint-Just. Perhaps due to his extreme positions, a legend eventually grew insinuating that Saint-Just had clothing made from human skin in the tanneries of Paris. With the fall of his friend and colleague Robespierre, he too met the widow on 10th Thermidor year 2, July 28, 1794. Yeah, this is also a guy we had to kill, I think, in a Paris story. Or co-mission, or haste. I think it was a Paris story. And again, the same story as with almost all other entries. They enjoy a period of power, but eventually have a really harsh fall down and get killed themselves. Louis Dominique Cartouche, born near the temple in Paris, the man who came to be known only as Cartouche, robbed carriages on the roads and benches in the city, and yet, despite his brigandage, chicanery, and non-stop misdeeds, Cartouche became popular with the Parisian populace. He was known to target the rich in what was otherwise a bleak period marked by economic crisis and meager means of subsistence. Alright, 1 second. Just checking out chicanery. I know a bit what it means, but the use of deception or subterfuge to achieve one's purpose. One second. Chicanery, I was checking, sorry, I was reading quickly, I was distracted. And brigandage, I would say more or less the same. The life and practice of highway robbery and plunder. Plundering by brigands. A bandit, especially one of a band of robbers in mountain or forest regions. Alright, sorry, I was reading the descriptions on my phone. There were a number of songs in praise of Cartouche. Betrayed by a henchman, he was locked away in the Grand Châtelet before being broken on the wheel on November 28, 1721. At the Place de Grève, in front of a large crowd eager to see the robber who had for so long defied the police and indirectly the monarchy. Missed out a bit about his years with the Brotherhood. Ah, the crafty cozener, broken on the wheel. There's a story in that. Alright, again, a weird, lame footnote. Really wish they would have skipped those. Alright, what the hell is a cozener? A person who cheats. Almost there. I was just trying to read it in my Dutch language, or in my native tongue, Dutch. Missed out the bit about his years with the Brotherhoods. Ah, the crafty cozener. Broken on the wheel. There's a story in that. Alright, by the way, that's also in the Middle Ages, the amount of cruelty present is unbelievable. Broken on the wheel. I'm not sure how it works. I think it is you're just being stripped onto a wheel, and I think a couple of horses. I'm not even sure. Then rip the wheel apart. It's crazy what they did. It was in existence till 1841. That's not even that long ago. Alright, would be taken to a public stage scaffold site and tied to the floor. The execution wheel was typically a large wooden spoke wheel, the same as was used on wooden transport carts, sometimes modified. With a rectangular iron thrust attached and extending blade like from part of the rim. The primary goal of the first act was the agonizing mutilation of the body, not death. Therefore, the most common form would start with breaking the leg bones. To this end, the executioner dropped the execution wheel on the shin bones of the convicted person and then worked his way up to the arms. God damn it. Here, rhythm and number of beatings were prescribed in each case, sometimes also the number of spokes on the wheel. To increase its effect, often sharp-edged timbers were placed under the convict's joints. Later, there were devices in which the convicted person could be harnessed. Although not commonplace, the executioner could be instructed to execute the convicted person at the end of the first act by aiming for the neck or heart in a coup de grace. Even less often, this occurred immediately from the start. In the second act, the body was braided into another wooden spoked wheel, which was possibly possible through the broken limbs, or tied to the wheel. The wheel was then erected on a master pole like a crucifixion. After this, the executioner was permitted to decapitate or garrote the convicted if need be. Alternatively, fire was kindled under the wheel, or the wheeled convict was simply thrown into a fire. Occasionally, a small gallows was set up on the wheel. For example, if there were a guilty verdict for theft in addition to murder. Since the body remained on the wheel after execution, left to scavenging animals, birds and decay, this form of punishment, like the ancient crucifixion, had a sacral function beyond death. According to the belief at the time, this would hinder transition from death to resurrection. If the convict fell from the wheel still alive, or the execution failed in some other way, such as the wheel itself breaking or falling from its placement, it was interpreted as God's intervention. There exist votive images of saved victims of the wheel, and there is literature on how best to treat such sustained injuries. The survival time after being wheeled or broken could be extensive. Accounts exist of a 14th century murderer who remained conscious for 3 days after undergoing the punishment. Another guy was conscious for 4 days and nights. Another one 9 days, reportedly. He was being kept alive with strong drink. Alternatively, the condemned were spread-eagled and broken on a saltire, a cross consisting of 2 wooden beams nailed in an X shape, after which the victim's mangled body might be displayed on the wheel. It is pretty crazy. Alright, sorry, that was a little intermezzo on the cruelties of these times. And this guy, Mr. Cartouche, also was broken on the wheel. And it's literally broken, literally breaking each bone in your body. And often with like sharp wooden blocks under your limb where the wheel would be slammed into, as to have like a double penetration, so to say. Crazy. Alright, Madame Lavoisier, born in 1758, Marie-Anne Pierrette Pauls, married at the age of 13 Antoine Laurent Lavoisier, the chemist famous for the law of conservation of mass. Following her husband's interest, Madame Lavoisier made a serious study of chemistry herself and thereafter played an active role in her husband's scientific experiments and discoveries. In addition to her work in the laboratory, she translated books from English to French to allow Antoine Laurent to further his scientific knowledge. Following her husband's execution, she protested vehemently against the arbitrary nature of the proceedings. She duly attended to her husband's posterity, gathering his papers and organizing the publication of his memoirs posthumously. Very nice, good work. Madame Tussaud, born Marie Grossolt in Strasbourg, Madame Tussaud would go on to be famous for her museum of wax sculptures in London. Again, we get footnotes. I'm already cringing in advance. Thank God she changed her name. I doubt they'd be queuing round the block for Madame Grossolt's house of vaguely recognizable figurines. Alright, funny. She learned how to sculpt from Dr. Philippe Curtius, for whom she worked as a housekeeper. Philippe Curtius was a physician, physicist and anatomist who sculpted heads and organs for use in his classes. I hope they mean anatomy classes, because if he just brought them out during random math classes, I think the authorities should have been told. Funny. Marie became his brightest and only pupil and came with him to Paris. Why his only pupil? He was a freaking teacher. He had classes. Alright, crazy. Unless it is only meant for that crafting of figures and heads and stuff. Or sculpture of heads. Sculpting of heads. In 1776, their exhibition of portraits attracted large crowds of people astonished by the realism of their figures. It was almost as if the skin of the sculptures quivered. Maurice created her first wax figures of Voltaire and Rousseau, the best of enemies, in 1778. Maurice? It is Marie, I would say. She then went on to Benjamin Franklin. She was also employed by Louis XVI to teach drawing and modeling to Louis' sister, and moved into Versailles. However, such proximity to royalty served her poorly after the fall of the monarchy. She was arrested for royalist sympathies and waited to meet her death in the same cell as Eugene de Beauharnais. Just as the executioner was cutting her hair to clear her neck, the order came for her release. The condition of her freedom was to create wax sculptures of famous heads, whether hated or celebrated. Eventually, these would include Marie Antoinette, Marat, and Robespierre. Her mentor, Curtius, died in the autumn of 1794. Just as the terror was subsiding, he left Marie his collection of heads. How touching. She left, and when... What was that? Was that Curtius also... It was just a doctor. He was either natural causes death or also the guillotine. It's not quite sure. She left for London in 1802 to present her collection, which had been the talk of the town for the past 2 decades. She would remain there for the rest of her life, establishing her famous exhibition. She died in her sleep at the age of 88 years, 45 of which she had spent sculpting. Having completed her own self-portrait many years since, she has remained eternally young. Alright, it is quite interesting. But that other guy, where she was in the same cell, Eugene de Beauharnais. Did we also have him over here? I think so. Pretty sure I saw that name somewhere. Here he is, right? No, this is another one. Eugene de Beauharnais. Who the hell is that? One moment. Ah, there's maybe a Josephine de Beauharnais. A French nobleman, statesman, and military commander who served during the French Revolutionary Wars and the Napoleonic Wars. No, that's not this guy, right? Ah, maybe he was only in the cell and never executed. Alexandre de Beauharnais, his father, was executed by guillotine. Yeah, I don't understand. It doesn't say anything here of him being in prison. He had a military career in the Vendée. He was born in 1781, so a military career, let's say 91. He was still a child during the revolution. So why? And waited to meet her death in the same cell as Eugène de Beauharnais. Maybe they meant Alexandre de Beauharnais, because that makes much more sense. That was a grown man and who actually went to the guillotine. There's Josephine de Beauharnais. Here. She married Alexandre de Beauharnais. And he fell to the revolution. Indeed, that's what I just read. He was killed in 1794. Yeah, I'm not sure why it says Eugène de Beauharnais here, but it doesn't matter that much. Maybe it could be that he also had a stint in prison. We read not everything. Here, I forgot the footnote. If by eternally young you mean permanently dead. Again, a totally useless, unfunny, needless footnote. Mademoiselle Lenormand, Marie-Adelaide Lenormand, born May 27, 1772 in Alençon, received a conventional education from that city's Benedictine nuns. It was there that, to her great surprise, she discovered psychic abilities that would allow her to pursue the practice of divination. With what the hell is divination? God damn it, so annoying. All these terms. The art or practice that seeks to foresee or foretell future events, or discover hidden knowledge, usually by the interpretation of omens or by the aid of supernatural powers. Unusual insight, intuitive perception. Alright, whatever. That is divination. Yeah, not divination. Divination is not really a thing, I think. Alright, yeah, now I'm curious. divination or divination. Yeah, pretty sure divination is not the way, at least not the most common way to write it. With the revolution she moved to Paris and set up a fortune-telling enterprise. It is said that this is where she met three key figures of the revolution, namely Marat, Robespierre and Saint-Just, for all of whom she predicted a violent death. To be fair, it was a pretty violent time. Lots of people were meeting violent ends. If this psychic had predicted their deaths would all take place on a little yellow barge called Colin, or by inadvertently impaling themselves on a series of stale baguettes, then I'd be impressed. Again, lame footnotes. Her activity made her suspicious in the eyes of the Committee of Public Safety, whereupon she was sent to prison in 1794, where she met and befriended Josephine de Beauharnais. She escaped the guillotine. Why would she meet Josephine in prison? Josephine never went to prison. She was married to nobility and then to Napoleon Bonaparte, the emperor. She escaped the guillotine and during the Directoire and Empire periods managed to set up a new necromancy establishment in the Faubourg Saint-Germain, where the elite made haste to hear her predictions. She is also believed to have met Napoleon, but this has not stopped the emperor having her arrested in 1803 and again in 1809 for treason. She believed herself to be nearly immortal and predicted a very long life for herself. Nevertheless, she died in 1843. Alright, necromancy, what was that again? That is like digging up graves or something, right? Communication with the dead, usually in order to obtain insight into the future or to accomplish some otherwise impossible task. Alright, like really weird. And let's see, Lenormand, did she actually exist? Wouldn't surprise me. Yes, a professional fortune teller of considerable fame during the Napoleonic era. In France, Lenormand is considered the greatest cartomancer of all time, highly influential on the wave of French cartomancy that began in the late 18th century. And I assume cartomancy is reading cards. Yes. Total swindling job, cartomancy. Anyways, here we go. We finished this one, right? Yeah. Mademoiselle Montaché. They are pretty long, these entries. God damn it. Born in Bayonne. Well, these are only the Paris Stories characters. These are the secondary characters. I do like it, but god damn it, it's a bit much. Born in Bayonne, this actress and theater director never failed to come out on top. That's what she said. Oh, stop it with these footnotes. Sorry, I've never quite got the hang of that. After starting out in an acting troupe, she worked her way into high society to become the director of a theater in Versailles. With the revolution, she set herself up in Paris, which at the time was home to 237 theaters that continued to thrive during the terror. Known as the Rebaud du Palais Royal, the Trollope of the Palais Royal, she set up 2 theaters that played to full houses. Her financial success inevitably aroused envy, and she was later accused of espionage and receiving funds from the English. Imprisoned on November 14, 1793, she was declared innocent and released after serving 10 months. Following the death of Robespierre, who hated this kind of woman, She resumed her career and conquered the hearts of her many admirers once more. She was 19 when the final curtain fell. Alright, interesting. But what the hell is Trollope? Trollope? Meaning... a woman who has many casual sexual encounters or relationships. Never heard of it. Let's see what the Urban Dictionary says about Trollope, just to have some fun. Alright, no funny descriptions. Marianne, the figure of Marianne is the allegorical figure of revolutionary France. Wearing a Phrygian cap, she embodies the liberty, equality, fraternity maxim adopted by the French Republic. The two forenames Marie and Anne were among the most popular in rural France and particularly among servants working in the cities. The figures of Marianne was first used to represent France in October 1792 with a revolutionary song entitled The Healing of Marianne. The refrain sings praises of the new Republican regime, officially installed 10 days earlier. The forename would soon be associated with the French motherland, symbol of the Republic triumphing over its enemies, both from outside and within. One of the most significant representations of Marianne can be seen in Eugène Delacroix's famous painting Liberty Guiding the People, completed in 1830. Alright, I'm quickly checking that painting, so I do Delacroix painting, and then we do Marianne. Liberty leading the people. Alright, that's indeed a painting of some kind of a big battle with a woman in the middle waving the tricolor, the new French flag. I was not aware, but that flag only exists in red, blue and white since the French Revolution. I thought it was way older. But yeah, that is probably the symbolic Marianne. She actually is waving the flag with her breasts exposed, or at least one breast. Probably also symbolic. I don't know, but man, what a freaky period that was. Totally crazy. Alright, and see, indeed in that painting, see liberty, it's called Liberty Guiding the People, so see is like indeed a metaphor for liberty. One of the three words of the magnum: liberty, equality, fraternity. Liberté, égalité et fraternité in French. Nicolas Flamel, born in it's not based on a real person. It's just like a symbol, really. First started in 1792 and then painted by that guy in 1830, so 4 decades later approximately. Alright, Nicolas Flamel, born in Pontoise in 1330. Nicolas Flamel later went to Paris to work as a scrivener. Now, what the hell was that? I think it's just somebody who can write. Flamel amassed a considerable fortune for himself, arousing persistent rumors as to how he managed to establish such wealth so quickly. For many, Flamel therefore must have been an alchemist, able to transmute base metals, such as lead, into gold or silver. In his youth, Flamel had a strange dream in which an angel showed him an extraordinary book. It was in this book of Abraham Eleazar that he would later discover the secrets of alchemy. Flamel went on a pilgrimage to Saint Jacques de Compostelle, where he met a certain Maître Gange, a Jewish Kabbalist who would give him certain keys for interpreting the book, which, it is told, allowed Flamel to use alchemical methods to acquire his fortune. So he had a dream. It's such fake stories. In his youth he had a dream of a book. It was this book from his dream that he would discover the secrets of alchemy later. So it was a real book. Somehow he found it in real life. How can you dream as a child of an existing book? Alright, whatever. Then he went on a pilgrimage and there's a guy who said, I know you're dealing with that book. You need these keys to decipher it. Or interpreting it. It's a totally shaky story, if you ask me. Flamel is credited with the reconstruction of the Church of Saint Jacques de la Boucherie, the remains of which now stand as the Saint Jacques Tower. Though some say that the Philosopher's Stone made Flamel immortal, it is known that he died on March the 22nd, 1418. He is buried alongside his wife in the present-day Cluny Museum in Paris. This was an important clue for one of the Nostradamus enigmas. Nicolas de Condorcet, Marie-Jean-Antoine Nicolas de Caritat, Marquis de Condorcet, was born in 1743. An exceptional student, he entered the Royal Academy of Sciences in 1769, where he developed his mathematical theories working on statistics and probabilities. With the revolution, Condorcet, who was close to the philosophers of the Enlightenment, believed that the sweeping events could allow for better public use of reason. He founded a number of journals and ardently defended the cause of women, affirming that he was in favor of women's suffrage. In 1791 he was elected deputy and became secretary of the Legislative Assembly, where he lobbied for educational reform. He voted against the execution of Louis XVI, which made him a suspect in the eyes of his fellow deputies. On October 3rd, 1793, a warrant was issued for Condorcet's arrest, whereupon he went into hiding. He hid for 9 months in the house of Madame Vernet. It was there that he wrote one of his most esteemed texts, Sketch for a Historical Picture of the Progress of the Human Spirit, published posthumously. Arrested in March 1794, he was later found dead in his cell. It was believed that he poisoned himself. Alright, I forgot where he popped up in game. 1 second. AC Unity. I think it was the Condorcet method or something, a mission. Yes. We had to retrieve some of his writings. Alright, apparently in game he was still alive. Alright, I'm hitting the 40-minute marker. We still have a couple to do. Nostradamus, let's do this one and then continue in the next episodes. Michel de Nostradamus was born on December 14, 1503 in Saint-Rémy de Provence in the south of France. An apothecary, he drafted his first almanac in 1550, in which he predicted events to come in relatively obscure rhyming couplets. It was around this time that he began to go by the name of Nostradamus, actually an inaccurate Latin translation of Nostradam. He went on to publish the prophecies of work that would effectively ensure his fame and reputation. He was summoned to the court by Catherine de Medicis in 1555. In 1555, it seems that he predicted the death of Henry II, King of France, correctly foretelling that Henry's skull would be pierced in a duel with his master at arms in 1559. In 1564, Charles IX assigned him the role of physician in ordinary to the king. He died on July 2nd, 1566 in Salon de Provence. Bet he didn't see that coming. So cringe footnoting. Alright, let's continue in the next episode. Guys, hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you there. For the meantime, do not forget, always do keep on gaming. See you later.